In solo leveling, after Sung Drippy Woo locked in saying he wasn't gonna play around anymore, he resurrected the defeated High Orcs, shocking the dungeon boss, questioning why his warriors turned into the undead. Drippy Woo responded saying that many of his warriors were still alive, but they too will soon become one with his shadow. And while pointing at the big boy himself, he said that ultimately he would be as well. The shaman was shitting in his pants now, saying that it was impossible, asking if he could be. But his next words became corrupted, meaning Drippy Woo wasn't supposed to know whatever he just said. The High Orcs that were left alive and the Shadow Army broke out into an all-out war. Sitting on the edge of his seat, the shaman questioned if he was a monarch, and if that was the case, then why did they end up here? Upon waking up in the dungeon, the only thing they could hear was just one command: to hunt the humans. But they didn't need a reason since they were just following orders, finally standing up from his throne, telling his guards to go slaughter him and bring him his corpse. This made Drippy Woo smile, asking if the generals were finally joining the battle. And in the fraction of a second, one of the generals suddenly charged toward Iron, but he managed to block the attack, clashing both of their weapons. It seemed like both of them were evenly matched. That is, until Iron suddenly redirected his sword into the ground, giving him the meanest headbutt ever seen to man. That must have hurt like hell, but Iron wasn't done, as he then axed the general's head into the ground with immeasurable strength. At the other side of the arena, two of the other generals went straight for Igris. Igris managed to block the first attack as he maneuvered over the other general's strike, sticking his sword into the ground. He then pulled out a second sword, launching it toward the fist general, hitting him right at the back of his head, as he then suddenly stomped on it, thrusting it right through his skull. Dude really had terrible luck, not gonna lie. The blade general rushed to attack for revenge, but Igris wasn't worried about that shit one bit, easily blocking his attack, chucking him into the air. Iron then came from behind, spawning out of nowhere, batting him even further upward like he was playing baseball. But even then, bro couldn't catch a break as Tank emerged, smashing his entire body into the ground. Tank and Iron waved at each other, knowing they just hit the dude with the meanest combo of a lifetime. Drippy Woo told the dungeon boss that it looked like his generals were way better than his, but he wasn't able to replenish his mana fast enough using potions, meaning if he ran out of mana, all of his shadow soldiers would disappear. The shaman, questioning why he was losing, couldn't believe his eyes, but it was obvious to everybody watching why he was losing, cause he's a bum. These lame hunters, seeing that my glorious king was winning, said that they couldn't just stand there and watch, and they should go help him. But the shaman suddenly activated several spells, including Hymn of Agony, Blazing Fire, and Blindness, as he went on to say that the audience shouldn't ruin his performance. And while putting a target lock on Drippy Woo, the shaman said he would shut that arrogant mouth of his, activating Hymn of Slumber, Hymn of Lethargy, and Hymn of Blindness. The attack hit him dead on, but the system informed him that the buff of immunity was activated, removing any and all status abnormalities. This dumbass smiled, thinking he had won, but he was suddenly hit with the realization his spells had absolutely no effect, asking why none of his curses worked, making Drippy Woo ask if he didn't remember what he said. And while nonchalantly wiping his clothes off, he told him again that he was a terrible matchup for him, as the permanent effect of longevity from Kandiaru's blessing made him immune to all diseases, poison, and any other abnormalities. Drippy Woo then said he would destroy that annoying little shield of his, as the glowing ball held by the Shadow Mage grew into a massive fireball after he equipped the mage with the Orb of Avarice. The blast suddenly broke through the shaman's defenses before he could even finish casting Hymn of Protection, as he then fell to his knees knowing he was completely fucked, asking Drippy Woo how dare he do this to him. In the middle of the battle, Mami Cha arrived with a pickaxe at hand, questioning what the hell she was even looking at. To see an all-out war between the High Orc warriors and the Shadow soldiers, she questioned what the hell she was looking at, asking if those were summoned beasts. She was utterly surprised, thinking that mage-type hunters specializing in summoning magic were only capable of handling one or two beasts at most. She then ran over toward the other hunters in the back, asking if they were okay and what had happened. Han Semi, in the middle of healing Sun Ki-hoon, said they didn't have any idea what was going on either. They're actually so useless, holy shit. The panel switched over to the shaman, screaming his lungs off, saying that his petty tricks wouldn't work on him anymore. Activating a plethora of spells, including Hymn of Rage, Hymn of Reinforcement, Hymn of Giants, and Hymn of Combustion. The boss monster was already big, but now he's an even bigger boy than ever before, towering over Drippy Woo. Seeing that shit was about to get serious, Mami Cha told the useless hunters to quickly get out of here. The shaman suddenly stomped the ground, saying he would squash the pesky little insects to death. But Drippy Woo, looking like he didn't want to deal with this shit, said he had a bad experience with giants before, not this again. A system panel then appeared telling him that his MP had reached 0. As the shaman on the verge of crashing out told the human not to get cocky since he's been playing with him until now, summoning a massive, and I mean massive, fireball engulfing everything in front of him in a sea of flames as he was yapping about how he was the almighty Kargalgan, asking if he still looked like an easy opponent to him. Drippy Woo suddenly emerged right next to his face saying, "Yep, indeed," summoning his dagger, striking the boss right in his eye. Blood splattered as he said that growing in size only made him an easier target, and a mage without guards couldn't possibly block an assassin's surprise attack, slashing and slicing the boss monster with immeasurable speeds. Wu Jinchul and the surveillance team finally arrived at the scene, questioning what in God's name was happening right now. Mami Cha replied, saying they were beasts summoned by that hunter, surprising Jinchul, making him ask if she was referring to the guy fighting the giant monster. Drippy Woo thought to himself that he couldn't inflict fatal damage on bigger guys using a dagger, tossing it to the side as he clenched his fist, saying that at times like these, this should do the trick, punching him straight on his stupid face. After Drippy Woo gave the boss of the High Orcs one of the juiciest punches imaginable, Wu Jinchul was utterly shocked seeing his display of power, making Mami Cha turn her head, thinking that it wasn't just Mr. Choi, but even the manager of the surveillance team that knew about him. Jinchul stated that they came here to help the strike squad after detecting the immense mana waves coming from the gate. But it looked like his help wasn't needed as he went on to glaze Drippy Woo, saying he would clear the A-rank dungeon all by himself. Mami Cha, finally realizing what he was capable of, said he was no doubt one of the best fighter-type hunters in the world, but he can even use summoning magic, questioning how many beasts he could control. She then asked who the hell was he, asking Jinchul if he knew him, but he responded saying he knew little, just a little bit. The panel switched over to the shaman crawling on the floor. He did not seem happy about the outcome of the battle one bit, but Drippy Woo, aura farming yet again, told him that the moment he lost his guards, he had absolutely no chance of winning. Seeing his empire crumble before his eyes made the shaman think it was impossible. There was no way he broke through the great Kargalgan's defenses, and like a sore loser, he began to shout at the top of his lungs until his life was ultimately ended by the people of his own race, stopping his yap session then and there. The system then informed him that he defeated the dungeon boss, earning himself 2 entire levels. He defeated the boss and his soldiers were handling the rest of the orcs, so it was about time to collect his rewards. Though since the dungeon belonged to the Hunters Guild, it would be greedy of him to take the boss's loot, but he could extract his shadow all he wanted, saying the singular command, "Wakey, wakey." Shadows suddenly began to envelop the shaman's corpse, and as he then roared, a new being was born, utterly shocking every single hunter in the room, since this was the first time they've seen such a thing. The extraction ended as the elite knight Shadow Soldier bowed before his master. Drippy Woo smiled, saying he was a whole lot calmer now that he was a shadow. There were only 3 ranks he knew about until now: Standard, Elite, and Knight. But this was the first time he's seen another rank saying it was befitting for a boss of an A-rank dungeon. The system then asked him to name his soldier, making Drippy Woo try to remember what his name was, but he apologized, saying he couldn't remember, so he'll just give him a new one. Drippy Woo then said the name Tusk, telling the elite knight that he would call him Tusk from now on. He thought to himself that obtaining an army of high orcs was a huge win for him. He could now preserve 127 shadows, though he'll return some of them to the world of nothingness and preserve the rest. Wu Jinchul approached Drippy Woo, surprising him, making him question what he and Mami Cha were doing here, not even noticing they were here. The hunters of the strike team started asking questions, making Drippy Woo ask how he was supposed to get himself out of this mess. But the surveillance team suddenly stepped in, saying that the Hunters Association was in charge of protecting Mr. Drippy Woo's identity, which could not be revealed to the public. It was a top-secret matter, but they would explain the confidentiality clause in detail, reiterating that they must not tell anyone about the events they witnessed here today. The surveillance agents told Drippy Woo they would escort him outside since it was the best way to avoid any unnecessary conflict. Jinchul, stating the obvious, said that Drippy Woo fought against an army of beasts in front of the largest and wealthiest guild in South Korea, with strength surpassing that of an S rank. And if they had any more questions, they should make an inquiry through the association, saying they would now help them make a quiet exit out of the dungeon. But Sun Ki-hoon came out of nowhere telling them to wait. He was a powerful hunter, so he could see why his identity must be kept secret, and he won't ask why he volunteered to be their porter. But he saved their lives, so he wanted to thank him on behalf of his entire strike squad. Bowing before my glorious king. Drippy Woo handed Han Semi her will, saying since she didn't die, she should deliver it herself, making her blush while laughing awkwardly. Rizzy Woo's back at it again. He then left with the surveillance team, leaving Mommy Cha speechless without being able to say a single word. Lee Bora then came up to her wanting to ask her a question, asking her why she brought a pickaxe with her, making her blush nervously, asking what if he thought it was weird. But Lee Bora replied, questioning who she was talking about. But she just looked down, gripping the axe in embarrassment, stuttering while saying, "Never mind."